Hi, welcome to this Q&A series about the thesis by publication. Today I'm going to be answering the question, should I be co-authoring with my supervisor? Before I get into the data, I'd just like to share my own opinion, and that is, if you enter a career in academia, there are going to be times when you need to work by yourself. And there are times when you will be working collaboratively with a team, and sometimes you'll be leading that team. And so as a chance to develop your skills as a researcher, I think it's really a good idea to get experience in as many ways of working and ways of being a researcher as possible. And of course, working autonomously, working in a team, leading a team, these are all skills that are really valued in any career. But in terms of policies, most universities or institutions, although not all, will have some guidelines as to what they will allow their candidates to include in their thesis. So you might see quite commonly a requirement that at least one publication needs to be sole authored, and there's an implication then that other publications may be co-authored. Some institutions require that all publications are either sole or led by the candidate, and others are much more flexible in what they will allow, and again others may have no explicit guidelines. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of data. There's not really a lot of data looking at the practices of doctoral candidates, but we have some information from our study that's based in Australia, and I'll just share that with you. So we looked at almost 250 TBP graduates. They successfully completed their doctoral education. They adopted a TBP approach. And we asked them what types of authorship they included in their final submission. And so more than one answer was possible. So as you can see, about 17% of the candidates in this sample included at least one sole authored publication. So it's actually quite not very common to include that sole author publication. Most commonly, we see the candidates as the lead author, and they are co-authoring with their supervisors and to a lesser extent with other researchers. But we can see 1/5 of candidates are including at least one publication where they are not the sole or the lead author. And this was particularly the case when other researchers other than the supervisor came into play. So you can have a look at that paper in more depth, and I'll put a link up in the comments. But you can see that co-authoring with a supervisor is extremely common. So there are a few things to consider. I think one of the criticisms of the TBP is that it's difficult to know what the contribution is of the candidate or the author or any of the other authors. Now, I would argue that supervisors have always been involved in the development of a traditional thesis, and the extent of that contribution really is unknown. It may be very small, but it may be quite significant. But there has not been in the past real transparency or acknowledgement of that contribution. Whereas in a TBP, it is almost always the case that candidates will need to include some information. There may be a document that they need to fill in or some specific text that outlines what their contribution was and what was the contribution of all the other co-authors. So there's a lot more transparency in this approach. The other thing is that it gives acknowledgement to the supervisor because they are informing, they are guiding, they are contributing to the research, and in the past they've had their name on the front, but to have their name together with this candidate on the paper, this is something that's really tangible and that is valuable to everyone in academia. So there are potential benefits for both. The candidate is likely to get perhaps more specific advice, particularly on the manuscript process, writing, revision, submission process. I'm making a big assumption in this video that everything is done ethically, that there is no power play going on so that people are getting authorship when it hasn't been earned, because there is a potential risk. The argument might be against a TBP is that the contribution of a candidate might be understated or overstated, but it is it's the candidate who is in the most vulnerable position because of the power imbalance. So we need to take care of that, but that will be the focus of another video. So, should I co-author with my supervisor? I think, yes, you can, unless your institution prohibits it, and many do. It's extremely common. There are many papers out there that look at how to do this effectively, how to try to limit some of the potential risks. But it should be your decision, but it should be informed by conversations with your supervisors. So that will occur at the beginning, but these should also be ongoing conversations about who is going to do what and how many publications you'd like, and the level of commitment, of contribution that you want with your supervisors. And so, for example, in my own case, my supervisor and I had early discussions. It was decided at the beginning that I would be lead all the way through. We would co-author for the first few papers, and then as I got my skills up and got some confidence, that I'd go out on my own. And we rearranged things as things progressed. But importantly, it should not be an obligation. You shouldn't feel that you have to publish with your supervisor, and it shouldn't be an expectation that they automatically place on you. But again, it needs to be a decision that is informed by an awareness of the potential benefits, but also the potential risks. And once I make that video, I'll put a link to it too, because this is an important thing to consider. So thank you very much. See you next time.